Welcome back to the Unity for J vigil. I don't know how many hours it's been on already, but we're going strong here. And I would love to introduce you and warmly welcome Ian Shilling, who was accused of being a Russian bot by Theresa May. And he actually went on Sky News to defend himself. I can only say that to be accused of anything by Prime Minister, you know you're doing the right thing. So Ian Shilling, at Ian56 on Twitter, take it away.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, when I did get accused of being a Russian bot by the Atlantic Council and Theresa May's government, then WikiLeaks actually posted out my interview on Sky News and stuck up for me. So I want to thank him for that. And also, lots of other people stuck up for me and said, he's not a Russian bot, he's just telling the truth. People have got to say the same thing for Julian Assange. Loads and loads, thousands of people have got to speak up on behalf of Julian Assange and kick up a fuss so that they cannot arrest him and deport him to the United States for put him in solitary confinement for years or whatever they plan to do with him.
God forbid.
Yeah, well, that's what they want to do, isn't it? The US government.
Well, actually, sorry.
So, I mean, what the UK government is doing to Julian Assange at the moment is absolutely terrible. It's nothing less than torture. I mean, if I got cut off from the world, I had no internet access, I didn't have a phone that worked, couldn't have visitors, I'd go nuts. It's psychological torture. It's mental torture. It's mental cruelty. It's been stuck in the Ecuador embassy for 6 years now. I mean, people have gone nuts over this. They've gone, you drive you insane. I mean, if my internet goes down for 6 hours, then I go crazy. And he's had 6 years of it, or 6 months now of no internet connection.
But it's a kind of. Oh, sorry, I think there's a delay.
Okay.
Sorry, keep going.
It's psychological torture. What Theresa May is doing is a form of torture on Julian Assange. The fact that he hasn't got any internet access. It's within Theresa May's prerogative. It's within her power to issue a guarantee of safety, free passage to an airport in the UK nearby, and for him to fly out wherever on whatever plane he wants to get to, fly to Ecuador or wherever he wants to go. That's within her power to do. So it's Theresa May's got the first option. She's got the power to do that. I mean, what they're going to arrest him on is a process crime that he jumped bail so he didn't get extradited to the US. Well, they can easily just pardon him for that. He's not charged with anything. He's not charged with espionage. He's charged with publishing the truth. That's why they want to get him. He's published the truth. He's told the truth. They don't like the truth, do they?
Well, they don't like to be exposed as to what they're doing. The fact that disregards constitutional law in America and probably various laws in England is beside the point. And it's probably through tremendous irritation that their power is being inspected. And so it's gangsterism at this point.
It's the mafia. It's just like the mafia, omerta. You're not allowed to speak. If you break omerta, then you get or whatever, or like Julian Assange, you get put in bloody house arrest or whatever. I mean, what they do, we used to hear stories like this. Ex-dissident was put under house arrest in Beijing or Peking by Mao for 6 years because he opposed Mao's policies or whatever. I mean, what Theresa May is doing, it's not a liberal democracy. How can you have a liberal democracy when you hold somebody under house arrest for speaking the truth? How can that be? That's totalitarianism. That's just authoritarianism. It's not free society, is it? You can't lock people up for publishing the truth about the government.
Well, apparently you can.
Well, that's what they're doing, yeah. But I mean, if we know there's no rule of law in the UK, because if there was any rule of law in the UK, Tony Blair would be in jail, David Cameron would be in jail, Theresa May would all be in jail for war crimes and treason and corruption and what else that they've been doing. We know that nobody in power is ever prosecuted for their crimes. So there's no rule of law.
Well, you know, this is why WikiLeaks and what Julian Assange decided to do, which has never happened in the history of mankind because the technology didn't exist, and the way in which information is kept now makes it far more accessible. What would you say if you were to sort of dream up a new, I don't know, branch of citizen? I'm just trying to think of the right words. Sorry, I've been up all night, so I'm like, my brain's gone soft. But, you know, if you can speak about what your vision would be of how society could be set up so that these types of legalized gangsterism, or at least not legalized, but just no law is enforced in the face of gangsterism, because that's essentially how governments are operating and have done for many, many, many centuries. But now WikiLeaks has stuck, you know, their foot in the door of, in effect, representing the working population and saying, no, we're calling power to account for its behavior. So if you were to envision what would need to change in society, let's say just in England, what would you start with?
I don't know, but I mean, democracy cannot operate unless people have got the information to make informed decisions. And that's part of what WikiLeaks does, is to inform people about what the government is doing. But I mean, we know the mainstream media, their job is to cover up what's going on. They don't tell you anything about the reality of what is going on, about, or the establishment politicians, what they're doing. They cover it up. So the only outlets we've got are the alternative media, of which there's dozens of credible sites that report on the actual truth of what these governments are doing and the crimes that they're doing, the war crimes, the human rights abuses like they're doing at Julian Assange, and whatever else. And then people like, I mean, WikiLeaks is the most famous whistleblower of all, right? Or publisher of all. Right? The reason that they are treating Julian Assange so badly and why they want to lock him up is as intimidation to prevent other people from speaking out, other whistleblowers. I mean, the UK government has got so many skeletons buried in its cupboards. They do not want another whistleblower downloading loads of emails of what the UK government has been doing, like arming Al-Qaeda in Syria, or making up junk about the Skripal poisoning, or whatever else that they've been doing. I mean, they've been arming Al-Qaeda terrorists for 7 years now, right? It's never reported like that in the mainstream media. They don't want some whistleblower from the the Foreign Office or somebody downloading a whole bunch of emails about Foreign Office policy is funding Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra terrorists in Syria to overthrow the government, do they? Because if WikiLeaks published it, millions more people would know about it. And that's the last thing they want.
Yeah, but you know, sorry, it's interesting that WikiLeaks actually is probably something that governments will prefer, because if WikiLeaks goes under and there's no longer Julian Assange and the other people who have very noble and responsible intentions, there'll be a different kind of platform where whistleblowers will go, and maybe the people that get those documents won't be nearly as conscientious. So in a way, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because I think people would get desperate when if they manage to destroy WikiLeaks and if they manage to silence Julian. The likelihood is they're just creating more desperation, and then people will create a platform and it won't be as well run. So in a way, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
I don't know. I mean, WikiLeaks, because of the material that it's published, is very famous now, isn't it? going back to the Iraq war crimes and whatever they published. It's very famous to millions of people. To start up something else and get a reputation, it's very difficult to get a reputation for telling the truth. Right? It's very difficult because obviously all the establishment, if anybody does start getting a reputation, then the establishment and the mainstream media will attack them. That's what they always do, isn't it? When somebody tells the truth, they attack the messenger because they can't attack the message and the content because it's the truth. So they can't deny it. They can't prove it's false because it's true. So they will always attack the messenger.
I'm just curious, when did you actually first come across any of the stuff that WikiLeaks put out, or is it just on principle that you appreciate WikiLeaks, or did you ever dig into it?
From their release of the Iraq war video, which showed the helicopter gunship and targeting and shooting civilians on the ground and killing people in the minibus and whatever in Iraq. So right from 2010.
Yes, I ask mainly because one of the things that Simon Floth, who was on a couple of hours ago, said is that he is sad that not more people actually look at the material that's on WikiLeaks, and it's understandable because it's like 20 million pages or whatever. But do you think that there are people now in England, for instance, who would be interested in setting up, you know, really a kind of a newspaper where they examine and write articles on the existing documents that are there? Because apparently Simon Floth says that there's loads and loads and loads of material that people haven't even published. I mean, in terms of reporting on it. Do you think people in England would be interested in doing that kind of investigative journalism and produce their own paper?
I don't know. Well, I mean, you'd have to put out, you know, WikiLeaks would have to ask that question. So somebody like WikiLeaks asks that question: is anybody interested in forming a group to investigate further and dig into the emails we've published or documents that we've published? And you know, and then maybe a group could be set up that way. But it needs to be some high-profile people, and obviously something coming directly out of WikiLeaks would be the best way because it's their documents that they publish.
True, but do you think, for instance, that his lack of, or that it's been so easy for the newspapers and news media to turn people against Julian? Do you think it's been easy because there just simply isn't enough for them to read about to find out, wow, I'm really glad WikiLeaks, you know, is a publisher of these things?
The main problem is that the vast majority of the population have been brainwashed for decades and told lies, covered up the truth by the mainstream media, and right from the school history books. You know, if you go back and you read a school history book about the Vietnam War or whatever, or the Bolshevik Revolution or whatever else, or JFK assassination, it won't tell you any of the truth about what really goes on. Right, so people are indoctrinated right from when they're small school children, right from when they're 7 or whatever. And then they're fed a constant diet of lies in their history classes, and they're fed a constant diet of lies on the mainstream TV news and in the newspapers. So most people haven't got a clue that they're being lied to. I mean, Noam Chomsky and people has said, you know, that the vast majority of the public haven't a clue what's going on, and they don't know that they haven't got a clue about what's going on. They don't know. People don't know. But I mean, that's one of the brilliant things about WikiLeaks was that it let millions of new people learn that they'd been lied to by the UK and US governments. That was the main thing. Millions of people started waking up to the US government and the UK government, constantly lying to them about what they're doing in their foreign policies and corrupt politicians like Hillary Clinton and whatever. Right, but most people, I mean, what the mainstream media do is set it up like a football game. They have two sides, right? And you're either a Man United supporter or a Manchester City supporter, right? And it doesn't matter what Man United do, they're always right and they're brilliant. Right? If you're a Manchester City supporter, Manchester United, their supporters are all idiots, haven't got a clue what's going on. Their team is rubbish and dirty. And that's just like that's the GOP in and the Dems in America. I mean, they both do 95% of the same policies all the time, but they don't remark on the fact that they're all colluding to do all these wars and spend $1 trillion on the national security state. They pick on trivial things like, I don't know, whether the cops should get armoured trucks or whatever. Some trivial little thing that they create an argument about. Mostly, it's about some stupid thing that one of the politicians in the other party has said something stupid, and they'll go on a fly about that. It doesn't mean anything. They don't point out that they're all colluding on the same policy. And it was exactly the same in the UK between Tony Blair's Labour and the Conservative government of David Cameron or John Major. They're all the same, exactly the same policies, and they just continue the same policies, and nothing ever changes. I mean, what the UK is really, the UK establishment is worried about now is Jeremy Corbyn, because Jeremy Corbyn is actually different to all the rest of it. So all the Blairite Labour, half of Jeremy Corbyn's party is his enemy, because they don't want to get him in power, because they'd much rather protect the establishment than getting somebody who will make a difference to foreign policy or whatever, or shake up the corrupt establishment, as they know. So,
do you think that there's any, viable solution for, citizens of the world, but certainly citizens in the UK and in England? Is there some solution to essentially remove oneself from the influence of mainstream news media? Do you think that truth is beginning to sink in, that it's not worth looking at?
People are doing that, and more people have done that over the last decade or whatever.
Do you think that's because of things like WikiLeaks, or do you think it's just...
It's definitely helped. It's woken up millions more people. The US election in 2016 woke up millions more people, because millions more people, both Trump and Bernie Sanders supporters, woke up to how much the mainstream media were lying. And they didn't realise it before. 10 million more Americans woke up. I don't know how many, but it was millions and millions. And throughout the rest of the world. I mean, Kate Oz only woke up because of the US election, and then she saw how much Bernie Sanders was getting abused in the mainstream media, and then understood that the mainstream media operates as the propaganda tool of a plutocracy, as she called it. So, but until there's lots more people that need to be woken up. I mean, it was said that about 5% of people supported the American Revolution at the start. At 5% of committed people who put their efforts in, put their work on the line, made a difference and changed the system of government. Now, some people argue it wasn't really much of a change of government or whatever, but it was 5% of the people, 5% of the population were actively involved in trying to change things. That's all it needs, 5%. Right? Things have only ever changed, because of a small group of people being very passionate and committed to bringing about some change. I mean, you go back in British history, the Toll Pod martyrs who got transported to Australia, there's about 30 of them. But they were committed, and the news of their persecution and false arrest and false deportation to Australia as criminals started the trade union movement, basically, in England. Right? It started workers' rights.
Actually, I want to interject something, because I was reading, I'm following on from your idea. I was reading, Cyberpunk by Julian Assange. And in the introduction, and this is what I'm getting to, is that the difference between the American Revolution and it just taking 5% of people and they made all the change, they didn't have the kind of technical surveillance and data grabbing, swift examination of somebody's every single move. And that's what this technology has created a tyranny that, in effect, is what, you know, is commonly known as a turnkey authoritarian state.
Right.
And that's why WikiLeaks is more than just to bring documents and truth to the people. If may I just read something that Julian said, and perhaps you can speak to that. Would that be all right?
Yep.
The world is not sliding, but galloping into a new transnational dystopia. This development has not been properly recognized outside national security circles. It has been hidden by secrecy, complexity, and scale. The internet, our greatest tool of emancipation, has been transformed into the most dangerous facilitator of totalitarianism we have ever seen. The internet is a threat to human civilization. These transformations have come about silently because those who know what is going on work in the global surveillance industry and have no incentives to speak out, well, with some exceptions. Left to its own trajectory, within a few years, global civilization will be a postmodern surveillance dystopia from which escape for all but the most skilled individuals will be impossible. In fact, we may already be there. So I think that Julian's mission is much more than just exposing corruption and criminality. He's also alerting people to the fact that we're being caught in a web and a sack, and it's going to stop us from ever being free. I mean, it was the IBM that helped the Nazis collect data on people so that they could quickly sweep on them at 3 o'clock in the morning and arrest them all and deport them. So it's much more than about exposing crimes. It's also in an effort, which is why I think Julian and his technical abilities is such a threat to this effort to create essentially a horrendous technological dystopia that people can't even grasp. And unfortunately, they're also being seeded with this bullshit that, well, as long as you're not doing anything bad, it doesn't matter, does it? And it's like, that's a very frightening aspect, a very British response. Or do you think people are starting to twig to the fact that this may lead to some horrendous Orwellian trap for the whole of mankind?
People have been saying this for years. I mean, over 10 years, easily. I mean, they've been comparing what has been going on with the mass surveillance that collects every electronic communication by everyone, collects everything. So, and then the purpose of it is to collect a surveillance, to produce a surveillance dossier on everyone. So if the government doesn't like you or wants to control you, they can go into their surveillance dossier and see what they can harass you on.
Exactly. That's also part of what Julian's trying to save people from. So it's not just about exposing corruption. It's about everyone waking up to the fact that there is a deep and terrifying threat to the whole of humanity and our future. So sorry to interrupt you. I'm just a bit passionate about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Julian is right. I mean, what you just said from Julian, he's a bit too negative at the moment. And for the last 10 years, there has been a fight about freedom of the internet, the freedom of information on the internet and exposing the truth. And it's been going on for 10 years at least about the battle for the information, the freedom of information on the internet. And the establishment keep doing things to try and censor all the content on the internet, and Facebook censor stuff that they don't like, and Twitter manipulate the hashtags to bury things that they don't like. They're all in league together to suppress the truth, aren't they? And there's a fight going on. It's been going on for years about maintaining freedom of information on the internet so people have the ability to find out the truth. If they've got the wherewithal and the guts to go and look and, aren't completely brainwashed by the mainstream media and start asking questions, they can go and find out stuff. They can go to some truth-telling websites, and one of those it's WikiLeaks about what they expose about the corruption of the criminal governments and whatever else. But I mean, there's dozens of credible alternative news sites, and I'm forever trying to recommend, you know, some half a dozen of the best ones to get people started to go and look. This is what is really happening. It's not the garbage that they're printing in the newspapers. This is what is happening. Right? We've got to get people to wake up to the information.
Absolutely. Actually, there's a man here in America who was a big health freedom fighter called Mike Adams. And he's pretty much, due to the emergency levels that we're living under right now, he produced a huge document, which I read. I actually tweeted it out, basically describing the technological and also the human rights issues of the present level of censorship going on in America and how they achieve that censorship, like Google's algorithms basically shooting everyone to the bottom of a search and blocking people and shadow banning and everything else. And, you know, Trump did actually say in a tweet that he considers shadow banning illegal and that he's going to do something about it. So I'm hoping this report, which was given to President Trump, that, you know, really he's got to put his money where his mouth is, because he's been banging on about the disgusting level of fake news. And, you know, part of fake news is having no opposition to it. So to algorithmically get rid of all these independent news, you know, outlets is part of this terrible intellectual societal trap that we're all slowly getting sucked into. So first of all, I'd love to know what sites you feel are very valuable for people to look at. Maybe you'd like to share that, if you can think of them.
Consortium News.
Brilliant, brilliant.
War.com, Zero Hedge, Kate Oz's blog on Medium and Steam It. What are the other ones that I usually go to? And the Anti-Media is quite a good one for learning all about the wars. Moon of Alabama is good for learning all about the wars and American politics. I'll do a tweet after this and put out the
brilliant
sites.
Yeah, brilliant.
I mean,
It's
they're
so
introductory sites that you know, they don't. I mean, you go to some truth-telling sites and they put some things in that are controversial, and you know, newbies are like, oh, well, that's a load of rubbish, I'm not taking that. So I mean, they're introductory sites that just print, you know, factual, backed up with linked evidence, whatever, what is going on. And there's nothing controversial in there. And anybody who starts looking at it will believe what they're saying. They don't put out, you know, so, I mean, you get the truth and you get the lies, and then there's bits in the middle that's all grey stuff in there. So, you know, people need to start off with just truth stuff. It's not controversial. Yeah, that definitely happened. They definitely armed all those Al-Qaeda type terrorists in Syria. There's no question about it. Look at all the arms. How did ISIS go from nothing to taking over half of Syria and Iraq in 6 months? They had help, didn't they? Who helped them? The US State Department, the CIA, the Pentagon.
But you see, that level of manipulation is actually a very military way of conducting any kind of offensive. I mean, I read in a JFK book the military orders for invading Cuba, and you know, it's everything like pull down the telephone lines, blow up the radio stations. I mean, in a way, it's very militaristic. Oh, bloody hell, say it for me. Militaristic. There we go. Methodology that they employ, and it's as equally dangerous and as disinterested in human welfare as any war. I wanted to just give a plug to Consortium News and Robert Parry, who passed. Anybody who wants to get a wealth of wisdom and an incredibly intelligent viewpoint, read anything by Robert Parry. He's just, would you agree with that? Robert Parry's really...
Read anything by Robert Parry or Ray McGovern, who also regular contributor to Consortium News. They were definitely my two favourite contributors on there. Ray McGovern's still excellent, writes loads of great stuff about what the intelligence agencies and the wars that are going on.
Yes, and actually, if anyone's interested, Kevin Shipp, who's also a former CIA, he's done some incredible talks revealing the structure of funding within government and their relationships. And he actually wrote a really wonderful book, which I really recommend people to read. But going back to your point that, you know, people are just being totally bomb-steered and given all the wrong directions, and the fact that you feel that people are waking up, what do you think British people could do to actively, well, demand that the freedom of press and independent media is allowed to flourish instead of being mangled by, you know, things like Google? Like, shouldn't Google... So, go on.
People need to get out on the streets. They need to protest. They need to be visible. I mean, you know, being a keyboard warrior, I mean, that only goes so far. You need protest. I mean, one really good thing that could happen in this current case is that WikiLeaks say we're going to have a march in London in a month's time, you know, on a Saturday morning or whatever, right? End of August, beginning of September or something. We're going to have a march. Please come and join us. And we're going to march from Hyde Park Corner to Westminster. And we're going to have loads of banners, free Julian Assange and whatever. Right? And, you know, 50,000 people turned up to that. That would inspire people.
It would. It would definitely.
Organisation, coordination and publicity, and a bit of a budget to put out some publicity. Right? And it needs a bit of time to get people aware of it and, you know, give them some notice. But then if, you know, tens of thousands of people showed up to this sort of march, I mean, they have protests about other things outside Number 10 and Downing Street and, you know, Whitehall in London. Right? When something bad happens, right, you do get tens of thousands of people. But mostly it's manipulated by the establishment. It's you know, controlled opposition stuff and whatever. It's not real stuff. I mean, you can do it. There are enough people in the UK who take the day off to travel to London and go and take part in a march and make some banners saying free Julian Assange and stuff like that. That's what needs to happen in this case, I think. You need to organise a march in London. And then, you know, the pictures could be beamed all around the world, to Australia, to America, all over the place. Everybody's interested in Julian Assange, all over Europe, America, Australia. Beam out the pictures. This is what happened in London. Go and do one yourself. So we want one in Washington as well. Go and free Julian Assange. We want a march in Washington or New York or somewhere.
Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic thing. And I also think anybody in England who hasn't yet logged on to Discord, it's actually unityforj.com/Discord, which is D as in dog, I, S as in sugar, C as in cat, O, R, D as in dog. And join, sign up, have a look around at all the things going on there. And, you know, I'm sure that there's artwork that you can download in order to print up on, you know, banners and things like that, and ideas, and there's terrific music and all kinds of stuff, but mainly it's to commune, because really what you're describing about getting a march together, people need to communicate and G each other up and make each other realize that this is more than just a guy stuck in an embassy. This is about the civilization of planet Earth going down the toilet.
It's about freedom, yeah, and avoidance of a totalitarian state that we have been heading for a number of years. I mean, which started accelerating when Bush passed the Patriot Act in 2001. And ever since then, things have been rapidly going downhill with all the mass surveillance has exponentially increased. The number of laws that stop people protesting, or you can easily lock them up or kettle them in London. There's loads of laws preventing protests, right? And other things.
Are there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
There was a law passed in the UK, something like 8 years ago or something, that said that the police could stop a demonstration or a march if it would cause annoyance to local residents. Right? Now, I have never seen a march in history that didn't have loudspeakers and people, you know, loudly chanting things and stuff that anybody living in an apartment on that street would not get annoyed by it, or, you know, they would hear it. So they could stop anything that they like, any march about anything. Because, you know, what do you do on a march? You have a chant, don't you? And say, free Julian Assange, or whatever your chant is, don't you? And you go around and everybody, you know, 5,000 people chant the same thing at the same time, and it booms.
Well, anyway, they've got
cause a disturbance in the local neighbourhood.
Well, if anyone who lives in London has been to the Notting Hill Gate Carnival, you know that that's not a legitimate excuse.
No.
No. If you had like a magic wand to make things go right and move in the right direction, what would be the first steps that you would hope would happen in England? I mean, if that's not a cruel question.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you've got to get rid of the current government. They are not going to change the current government. I mean, well, Corbyn might change some things or whatever. I don't know. That's the real problem. How do you change things? I mean, if
I love that you said that. Sorry. I love that you said that, because what that identifies is the fact that people need to discuss and talk and vividly exchange ideas and not do this absolutely ridiculous 21st century nonsense of like clobbering each other and being rude and insulting, but instead to actually really debate and inquire and inspect. And it's through that intellectual exercise that people communicate and find the people they want to work with and want to organize with, and not to do violence or revolution. This is a non-violent revolution, because the actual war being struck is a non-violent war. It's really a war of ideas and a war of strangulation of thought and communication. So I'm sorry, I'm terrible at interrupting.
Well, you're right. I mean, if you have some big event going on, like if a Julian Assange march was taking place in London, then you would have all these various spin-off groups saying, I'm going to design banners for this and put this out, or I'm going to print out some leaflets, or whatever it is. And people would get encouraged. They would get enthusiastic about it. They would put more effort in. And that would then draw more people in. You get bigger groups. That's what, you know, so it is a snowball effect. You've got to start somewhere, right? So, you know, but having some big thing to focus on, like a march, would be a really good thing to kick the ball rolling.
Yes, and in fact, I think you've identified another issue, which is that, you know, people are so discouraged that they feel like they can't make a difference, and of course that's by design. The powers that be want to make people feel like there's no hope and not to bother. I mean, hello, that's like 101 fighting a war, where the planes fly over and drop leaflets saying, you haven't got a chance, give up, you know. And I think that by doing a march and getting together and going on Discord, then you're sort of detoxed from this poisonous lethargy that they're trying to persuade people that you haven't got a chance. So just sit down and shut up. And so I think that, you know.
Well, I mean, people working in smallest groups, you know, 10, 5, 50 people, that sort of size, they do generate their own internal enthusiasm, their own energy. Right? If you're talking to 10 other similar-minded people, then it gives you a huge boost. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, when I got victimised on Twitter by Theresa May's government, and then 100 people on Twitter say, "You can't ban these people. This person, he's not a Russian bot," and whatever, you know, that gave me some encouragement to carry on. When 100 people spoke up on my behalf, you know, if you're
exactly
10 or 50 people all talking the same stuff and say, we got to do something about that. Yeah, let's go do that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do a banner. I'm going to do a huge banner, 10 foot wide, 2 people hold it.
Yeah. Well, I think more than anything else, people just need to make a little bit of effort for their future, for their children's future, and educate themselves a little bit. You don't have to go balmy. You just have to pull your finger out a bit and, have your spirits lifted by being with other like-minded people, and understand that it's all smoke and mirrors. They want people to be intimidated, frightened, and give up. There's so many people on this planet. So I'm not saying that anything has to come to a revolution or violence. I'm just saying people just need to inspire each other. So go on Discord, watch the other Unity 4 interviews, because I've been listening to them over the last few hours. Few days. Sorry, I'm getting a bit punch drunk from being up all night. They're inspiring. They're interesting. Each person has a unique thing to add in terms of information, and definitely check out the independent news channels that internet sites that Ian mentioned. And I encourage you also to look on Mike Adams' site, which is naturalnews.com, and look for his report on how they're technologically destroying and causing censorship, to just happen at the most terrible rate in America, and how dangerous that is. So anyway, Ian, do you have any final words of inspiration and encouragement to people about WikiLeaks and getting out there and supporting Julian Assange?
Well, just be active. Try and wake up new people. Don't just try and talk to people who already know about stuff. Try and wake up new people. I mean, friends and relations. I talk to your children. Wake them up about what the government is actually doing. If people have got young children, the best way to teach them about the world. I mean, there's lots of things you can do to try and wake up new people that don't know what is going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to do it in a non-aggressive, non-insulting, patient and kind way, because I'm sure it's not different in England. Would you say that most things on TV are people just bashing each other over the head and not listening?
Yeah, it's gossip, isn't it? It's political, partisan gossip mostly. Like point scoring. It's like a boxing match between two political parties, isn't it? And you support one boxer or the other boxer. I mean, they're not really doing anything. Well, it's more like wrestling, isn't it? Because wrestling's stage money.
Yeah, political wrestling is hardly a form of high intellectual pastime.
Yeah, but try and wake up new people. Try and reach new people. If everybody who was woken up or partially woken up woke up 2 or 3 new people, it'd be huge overnight. You could do it in a year. If everybody who was awake now woke up 3 more people, it'd be huge in a year. There's 3
Absolutely.
more people. Everyone did that in a year.
Absolutely. And to keep communicating, because a lot of it is that many of us kind of drift off and get distracted by the rest of life. And, the powers that be depend on you being distracted. And I don't think it's a coincidence that there's so many bloody things to distract you.
It's totally deliberate. Yeah, distract you with inconsequential things. Keep people poor. They want to keep the 90% of the population poor, so that they're too busy trying to scratch a living, and they're too tired at the end of the working day to do anything else. They could go and sit in their armchair or on the couch and fall asleep in front of the TV, don't they? That's what they do.
Yeah, and I if we can just insert this, people should really investigate Codex Alimentarius. And if you want to get the lowdown on that, look up a lady called Dr. Rima Leibau. So Dr. Rima Leibau, because wars are one thing, but a kind of a slow kill in order to reduce vast numbers of human beings on the planet. People should investigate the Georgia Stones. there's a lot that people need to understand that's going on. It's not just wars. And I see Susie getting in her little hot seat. Oh, actually, it's quite literally a hot seat because I think it's quite hot in Moscow.
It looks hot.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just going to bust in here. I've got to be honest. I haven't even put my makeup on yet, so I'm not.
You look beautiful.
Ready, but I got two things. I got two things that I want to jump in and say before I'm actually in my interview window that we're about to do next. Ian, you made my day when you were on the UK MSM a couple of months ago and they were asking you stupid, insulting questions and you absolutely let rip with pure 100% truth of a kind that we never get to see on MSM. And that was a breakthrough moment. I was literally clapping and cheering in my seat, and I know that people all around the world were.
Okay, thanks a lot.
That was true. It was truly fantastic.
I knew I was going to go into a Gestapo type environment in the Murdoch studio, so I was prepared to get attacked. So I didn't. I sort of went a bit easy at the start and went hard as it went on, wondering when they were going to cut me off. You know, when I said there's no credible journalists on Sky News, I thought that might be the end of it, but they let me carry on.
It was absolutely classic. It was fantastic. And the other thing that I wanted to say is happy birthday, Vivian Kubrick, She has spent her birthday here on live stream advocating for freedom for Julian Assange. That just shows what a remarkable human being she is. And I must admit, our graphics team made you a birthday card. Don't know if you got to see it yet.
No.
And there's hundreds of people right now tweeting it around the internet and sending you birthday greetings. So
Thank
congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I can honestly say this is like one of the best birthday presents I've ever had, is to express my love for humanity and talk to amazing people. And thank you, Ian Shilling, before I go. It was great talking to you. And I just implore people to think about the bright and amazing future we can have if you just do a little bit of research work and, cheer up, because it's designed, the whole environment is designed to make you become apathetic and think there isn't a chance. And there's more than a chance. There's a bright, incredible future for all of us. And I love Susie and Elizabeth for putting this incredible vigil together. And I pray for Julian. And I now am going to go and walk my dogs who've been circling my desk for the last 5 hours. And
something else I wanted to let you guys know, it's very interesting. We're sharing the Periscope on Twitter and it's saying 24 viewers, and inside Periscope it's saying 45,000 views.
What?
So yes, the last two streams we had 31,000 viewers on one, 45,000 viewers on the next one, and inside Twitter it says 20 viewers. So I find that particularly hilarious and indicative of exactly the type of the censorship that you were both just talking about not long ago.
Yeah, and that's why people definitely need to check out Mike Adams' report, because he is actually someone who's made the most incredible document, a declaration, and it's gotten straight to President Trump. I know people have a problem with President Trump, but all I can say is I can think of worse people like Hillary Clinton that could have gotten in. And I know Hillary Clinton, fans are going to go, what? But I can only say we don't live in a democracy. So let's just get real about that. I think Trump has brought some wonderful things into being. He's tried to create a relationship with Russia, which is important. And before anyone has hysterics about Russian, infiltration into the freedom of the free world, just remember that there won't be a world if we get into a nuclear war. So I think Trump's instincts to be peaceful with Russia is beautiful. His efforts to bring peace to North Korea and keep Kim Jong-un, whatever his name is, under control, that's smart. And I can only encourage people to be positive And I tweet to Trump. I have no idea if anyone looks at them, but I'm polite. I tweet my ideas, and I just say to people, flood out your ideas, flood out your support to Julian Assange, because the more power there is in terms of human voices, the more they're going to be intimidated. And if I'm not mistaken, one of your speakers actually said that they always pull back when there's enough pressure. And that's because most really rotten, bad people are not very courageous people. So rock on, world, and I'm going to go and celebrate my birthday.
Good on you, Vivian. Well, I personally think that Donald Trump is a reality TV star acting in a reality TV show called Conventional Politics. And I think that Conventional Politics is little more than a reality TV show. And I think that the people who are truly pulling the strings are the ones who are making a 45,000 view stream, say 20 viewers.
You're totally right. You're totally right.
That's my personal position, but whatever. Thank you so much. Amazing being here. Now I've got to go and put some makeup on because there's, well, actually I was about to say because there's some Kiwis here, but to be honest, I never wore a stitch of makeup in New Zealand anyway. But I will make an effort because I'm about to get to interview two amazing New Zealand activists who have been on the ground getting thousands of signatures for petitions for Julian and doing cool stuff. Ian, thank you so much for being here. I haven't got a chance to talk to you yet and explain that this is more than just a series of streams. We actually, I'm not sure if Vivian did get to tell you, we have a 2,500 strong member volunteer organizing platform separately to these streams where we are cooking up all sorts of on the ground actions. And I listened to what you were saying about the march from Hyde Park to Westminster. And that's precisely the type of initiative that we will be going for and in the type of time frame that you were talking about. So if I could get some support from you just in terms of retweeting and telling your own fans and your own followers that this is happening, I would deeply appreciate that. Thank you so much for supporting Julian.
I will certainly do that. Yes, I will certainly do that. Thanks very much for having me on. It's been great.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Okay. At the hashtag, see what people are posting, yes, and retweeting them and whatever. Yes.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at the hashtag, you will see literally thousands of tweets about the stream, photos and clips and people live tweeting quotes and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, the people are out there and they care, that's for sure. Okay, I'm going to let the tech team run some music videos. I'm going to get ready for the interviews. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Ian. You've been amazing.
Thank you. Okay, it was a real pleasure, and I'm honoured. Bye now.
Happy birthday, Vivian.